Aladdin is a live-action adaptation of the beloved classic Disney animation Aladdin from the 90s. And frankly, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do a spoiler-filled review like I normally do for movies, because, man, this is just a live-action adaptation of a movie that anyone with a childhood has seen. So, you all know how this goes down, but, alright, let's just get into the review. So the movie opens up the same way the original Aladdin opened up. You know, you have Aladdin. He's a street rat. He steals from various markets in the streets and, you know, just takes what he can to survive. One day he meets Princess Jasmine, who herself is like posing as a, not really a poor woman or anything like that, but certainly someone of underclass, certainly someone that doesn't look like a princess. Because Jasmine, she's basically kept away in the palace, doesn't really do anything, she wants to get out, she wants to see the world. They meet each other, Aladdin basically shows her the way of being a street rat, and that's the start of what their romance becomes. So getting into this meeting, I will start with this right here. I thought Mina Musad, I could be butchering his name, and Naomi Scott, I'm pretty sure I got that right. I really liked their performances as Aladdin and Jasmine. Because Mina Musad, guys, I'm gonna do my best, I promise. He does bring out a lot of what made Aladdin such a great character. He's funny, he's clever, he's a street rat, but he means well. He's someone who's down on his luck, but he's not like a poor, woe is me, oh, I hate my life, everything sucks kind of person. He's very uplifting, he has good spirits, and it makes you root for him. Naomi Scott, though, I really want to give her credit, though, because she was maybe my favorite performance in the whole movie. Because what she does a really good job of representing is what Jasmine was in the animation. She's not too thrilled of the idea of being a princess. She doesn't want to be just locked up in this palace. She knows there's a world out there. She wants to see it. And you can tell she's quickly developed feelings for this Aladdin, but she can't marry him because she has to marry a prince. Because ultimately, whoever she marries will become the new sultan when her father steps down, and they'll rule the kingdom together. You know how royalty works. In this movie, though, what they explore more on, and I'm not so sure if this was in the original animation. It has been years since I've seen the original animation, so that is a little fuzzy with me, I will say that. But I don't fully remember if in the original animation they really delved into the idea that Jasmine would eventually become Sultan, that a woman, that a princess would become Sultan, or Sultan. I think that's actually how you pronounce that. Okay, it is. In this movie, though, they delve more into the idea of Jasmine becoming Sultan, how she's like, oh, I shouldn't have to be married to rule the kingdom. I should do it myself. I've seen what's out there. I know how to make the kingdom better. And, you know, people could take it as Disney taking the feminism route, being like, oh, you know, she doesn't need a man to rule a kingdom. She can do it herself. But I like seeing that with Jasmine, more so in the fact that she wants to get involved. She wants to actually do something. She wants to make a difference. And then along the way, Aladdin meets Jafar, who is the Sultan's advisor, and Jafar tells Aladdin, hey, if you go into this cave, give me this lamp, I'll make you rich enough to impress Jasmine. Now let's get into Marwan Kanzari. I think I should, guys, I'm not gonna pronounce the names, and these are some tough names, give me some credit. But he was the performance that I was a little weary on, because when I saw him in the trailer, I speak for myself, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say, he didn't really feel like Jafar. What we see of Jafar in the original animation, he's this older, really scary looking dude. He just, the way he talks, the way you look at him, like, you just immediately feel kind of disturbed because you know this guy's evil. He just screams evil. This guy, Marwan Kanzari, he didn't really scream that for me. He's a younger guy, he's a good looking guy. He didn't really instill fear into the people he was talking to. I was just like, this was the best you got? I really wanted him to feel like a live-action adaptation of Jafar. At no point did it really feel like that for me. Going into this movie, I thought Javier Bardem would have been the perfect Jafar. Because, you know, he's older, he's way more sinister looking, and he is great at playing villains. We have seen him do that on a multitude of occasions. If someone like him got casted to play Jafar, I think this movie would have been a lot better. The character of Jafar in this movie would have been a lot better. But, you know, Aladdin goes into the cave, he finds a lamp, he rubs the lamp, and Will Smith as the genie emerges. Now this is the performance that everyone went into really completely skeptical on. I'm guessing that's ultimately why Disney didn't really feel the pressure to cast maybe the perfect Jafar, because everyone's eyes were on, okay, who's gonna play the genie? Because we all know Robin Williams as the genie, that's one of the greatest characters of all time. The genie in the original Aladdin, that is how a supporting character should be done. He's hilarious, he's a major point to the story, and just all the dialogue he has, it's just so good, and the way Robin Williams delivered it, it was just, it was so memorable. Rest in peace, Robin Williams. But I will say, when I heard about the production going into Aladdin, I did feel Will Smith would be a good choice to play the genie. Because we've seen Will Smith in things like Fresh Prince. We know Will Smith is capable of being a really funny guy who can deliver some great dialogue. And I will say, in this movie, Will Smith as a genie, he was fine. And let me explain what I mean by that. There were moments in this movie where I do feel Will Smith did kind of make the genie his own. He brought his Will Smith factor into the role. You know, the kind of witty sense of humor that Will Smith is known for having, he incorporated it a lot into this movie, and when he was doing that, that's where I really felt the genie worked for him. But obviously there are a few times where he's just using dialogue that was from Robin Williams, and he's doing it, and you hear it, and you're just like, I don't feel it as much. Because you ultimately feel like it's Will Smith trying to be like Robin Williams' genie, and the problem is nobody is Robin Williams' genie. But you know, now those two partnered up, Aladdin's like, oh, genie, can you make me a prince? And he's like, yeah, I'll make you a prince. So turns him into a prince, brings him to meet Jasmine. And I would say the scene where Prince Aladdin meets Jasmine, this scene was actually really funny because it's showing how Aladdin, you know, trying to be someone that he's not, it's not working out for him. Trying to make a good impression with the Sultan, trying to make a good impression with Jasmine, and it's really backfired. And this is where some of Will Smith's humor really came in because he's really giving Aladdin shit for it. It's like moments like that with the genie I really appreciated. But sticking with the genie for a moment, things that I didn't like, visually, he still didn't look the greatest. If you remember from the trailer reaction that I did for the original Aladdin movie, I said in my review, Will Smith doesn't look that great as the genie visually, but I was like, you know what, maybe in time he'll look better visually. In this movie though, not as much. There are some moments where you look at the genie and you're just like, this is so clearly CGI. It's like you've just seen how far we've come with special effects over the years. I'm like, you could have made him look better than this. Like, there were moments where Will Smith just appears as a genie in human form, and that's where I felt it worked a lot better for the movie because, you know, it's just Will Smith. But obviously he has to appear as the blue genie at some point because if you take that away entirely, people are going to be furious, but it just didn't look the greatest visually. But anyway, soon enough, we have the night where Aladdin takes Jasmine onto the magic carpet, you know, they travel across the kingdom, they stay in a whole new world. I'm going to touch on the musical numbers in this movie because, again, similar to how I felt about Will Smith's genie, these were a little streaky for me too. I will say, the scene of a whole new world with Jasmine and Aladdin on the flying carpet, that was awesome. The setting was great, visually looked great. It really did remind me of the animation. It brought out that nostalgia. But I'll say, there were a couple other musical numbers during this movie that I felt were a little too cartoony for me. Like going back to the beginning of the scene where Aladdin and Jasmine meet for the first time and Aladdin's giving that musical number where they're just going about the kingdom, avoiding all those guards coming after them. The way it's executed, the way it's done, it felt too much like a live-action adaptation, trying too hard to be exactly like the animated adaptation. As we've seen, there are certain things that work really well in animations, not so much in live-action adaptations. There were moments like that with musical numbers, there were moments like that throughout this movie, really, and ultimately, I have to blame that on the directing. Like, I know Guy Ritchie directed this movie, and I know Guy Ritchie has actually made some good movies. I'm not discrediting him as a director, but I feel some of the direction he took in this movie, it didn't translate as well from animation to live action. I think that's ultimately the issue that some directors suffer from when they make live action adaptations. They don't understand that some things just aren't going to translate as well if you're going to take something directly from an animation to live action. And now we get to the part where Jafar finally gets his hands on the lamp. Now the genie's forced to obey him. Like I say, it's this final climatic showdown where, you know, Jafar gets the lamp and the genie's forced to obey him, and, you know, Aladdin, Jasmine, and everyone, they're trying to stop him. This all kind of happens and ends very abruptly. Like, you know, Aladdin gets a lamp, makes his first wish to be Sultan, but, you know, then Jasmine has this song, gives this whole speech about how the guards don't have to listen to him, but then Jafar's like, okay, now I wish to be the most powerful sorcerer in the world. He takes all them out. You know, quickly demonstrates his powers, like, sends all of them, like, floating through the floor. Aladdin shows up, doesn't do that with him for some reason, because that would have really helped him out. But, you know, has a brief little showdown with Aladdin, then Aladdin pulls the whole, oh, but the genie made you who you are. You will never be the most powerful man in the room, like you said. And then Jafar's like, oh, shoot, that's right. Well, then for my third wish, I wish to be a genie. And then, you know, becomes a genie, but then he gets put into the lamp, and, you know, boom, Jafar's defeated. Honestly, from what I remember in the animation, they handled that a lot better. Like, Jafar's rise to the throne, him gaining his powers, him holding control over the genie, and then eventually Jafar's defeated. It doesn't all happen like the snap of your fingers. They actually had that drawn out for a little while. And that's ultimately what confuses me, is the fact that this movie was 2 hours long. The original Aladdin, what is that, like an hour and a half? Maybe even shorter? The fact that the animation, which is shorter than the live action, was able to handle that better, I mean, I think that's a knock against the live action. Like, the live action didn't handle its pacing well. It maybe put a little more focus on the things that they wanted to be more original about, or things that, you know, maybe didn't need as much of a focus on. And when it comes to the point where they have to have this final climatic showdown, it just happens and ends abruptly. So, you know, Jafar's defeated, and Aladdin has to make his final wish, and the genie says, okay, here are the options. I could just take away the law that says you have to be a prince in order to marry Jasmine, but Aladdin, he holds true to his promise. He says, Genie, I will wish for your freedom. So, you know, Genie is now free. He's just a normal human. He can now live a life with one of Jasmine's handmaidens that he fell in love with. I know that was something completely original that they did for this movie. I actually didn't mind that. I mean, the romance that he develops with this handmaiden, it was actually pretty funny, because then it harkens back to the scene at the very beginning where Will Smith was telling the story of Aladdin on the ship to his 2 kids, and there was his wife who was in the background. You didn't see who it was, but now you find out that it was that handmaiden. But, you know, the Sultan once again still lifts the law like he does in the original animation. Jasmine and Aladdin still get married, and all is well. Because in this one, Jasmine is going to be Sultan, and she's going to rule the kingdom, which may have also happened in the animation, but I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I really should rewatch the old Aladdin. It's such a good movie. So all in all, this live-action adaptation of Aladdin, it was a decent movie. Most of the performances in this movie were solid, especially Naomi Scott as Jasmine. She was easily the best one. The singing was done well. In the musical numbers, no one really had a vocal performance where I was just like, okay, you can't sing. No, everyone was able to sing, which was good to see. Because in some musicals, the actors they bring in just really can't sing. Not naming in particular, Les Mis, pardon me. But in this case, everyone could sing, and it was nice. The movie does bring back a lot of nostalgia. It's really cool seeing things in live-action adaptation that remind you of the old Aladdin. That being said, there are some moments in this movie that were just a little too streaky for me. The way the genie looked visually, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. The moments where Will Smith was being himself as a genie, I liked those. The times where he's trying to be more like Robin Williams, I didn't really like those. The actor who played Jafar, I didn't think he was the best choice for it. I really feel they could have done better. Even Iago, I've never touched on Iago in this review, but he's not as good as he is in the animation. I mean, he's just a parrot who has a few one-liners, but he's not like straight-up comic relief like Gilbert Gottfried's Iago was in the animation. That bummed me out. Some of the musical numbers are executed really well. Others feel like they belong more in the animation. The movie's pacing and storytelling I also felt was a little too hit or miss. I feel there are some elements they should have given a little more focus on. And in the end, as far as a live-action adaptation for Aladdin could go, this isn't the best it could have been, but it wasn't the worst either. This was a fine attempt. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.